Hey, y'all, welcome to episode 10, season 2 of the Peace Podcast, just giving reflection, whatever that looks like. And so, remember how we picked a word at the beginning of the year? Well, that word holds no value if we don't check ourselves. So, if you have a word and you just put the word in your back pocket and you never look at it again, then there's no point in really even picking a word in the first place. So, the point of picking the word is to see how you progress toward the word, but also to see what things you're unshouldering as you learn more about the word. And so we have to check ourselves. What are some things that we should be checking? Well, first you have to think about, is my word actually serving me? So when we pick a word, we're in one state of mind. And then maybe in these 2 months, since it's 2 months into the year, you've decided that that word isn't really serving you. No one says you can't change it. So if my word isn't serving me, if my word is feeling like it's not really something that I want to hold on to, then change your word. If that word is working for you and you're deciding that maybe you need to do a check-in because you're not really sure how it's working for you, now would be the time. So you think about, what was my word? Why did I pick my word? And what are some lessons that I've learned along the way because of this word? Again, if you don't do this, it is a huge part of the process of unraveling how you are progressing toward the word. If you don't do it, then there's no point in picking a word. So the way that I do this is I sit down and I think about my word, and then I think about what has happened in the past 2 months. So, what are some things that have happened in my life? What are some messages that God has given me? What are some pieces of information that I've gathered from my environment or the people around me? What are some transitions that have happened? And then once I get that information, then I start to think about, what's the lesson inside of these and how does it relate to my word? So as you know, my word is abundance. So I sit and think about, how has this evolution in the last 2 months related to the word abundance? And the first thing that I have to do is check myself, and are you actually keeping your word to yourself? So I said I was going to focus on abundance. If I don't know where abundance has shown up in my life, then I haven't really kept my word to myself, because if I'm not seeing it, then I haven't really been focusing on it. And if I made it a goal, but I'm not focusing on it, then it's really a wish and not actually a goal. So I sit with myself and say, okay, are you keeping your word to yourself? Are you really focusing on this word? And if I haven't been, then there's no point in really doing this part of the process. But I need to come up with a way, an avenue, some sort of structure of keeping track of how this word is pertaining to my life, how this word is showing up in my life. Once I decide whether I can actually check if the word is affecting me in the last 2 months, or if I need to create a structure for moving forward with the word, then I can start to really uncover and unearth how that word is actually showing up in my life. So for me, that looked like, okay, these last 2 months, I've been focusing on abundance. Now, I also told you that within the first week, actually, as soon as the word was picked for me, within the first week, I noticed that in order to find abundance, there are things that you have to let go of. In fact, that was the very first quote that I got in relation to abundance. So, if you want abundance, then what are you filling with that space that's creating scarcity? And what do you need to let go of? A lot of those things for me were unforgiveness, which is a really big one, unforgiveness of myself. So, what are some things that I've not really processed on my own and forgiven myself for doing? And then unforgiveness of other people. Like, what are some things that I'm not willing to let go of that have been done to me? And that was really holding a big place in my capacity for receiving. Because if I have this unforgiveness, it's filling up a huge part of my bucket and a huge part of my focus. And if that's happening, then I'm not really giving a space for God to fill it with something that's actually going to affect my life in a positive way. So that was the first thing that I uncovered. The second thing that I uncovered is that when you focus on abundance, it actually gives you the opposite too. So, like, my focus on abundance was really showing me areas of scarcity. So, what are some areas where you're lacking, and how are those going to be abundant? And once you take inventory of the spaces where the opposite of your word is happening, then you can start to see, what are you feeling emotionally in your bucket because of those things. So it might be scarcity in finances. So let's say, like, I want abundance, but here's a scarcity aspect of my life, and it involves finances. Well, if you're so focused on how scarce your finances are, then all you're going to be thinking about is how you don't have enough. I don't have enough of this. I need more and I don't have enough. But you're not really going to be focusing on the fact that right now I don't have enough, but how am I allowing more to come in? So am I tithing? Am I making sure that I'm really paying attention to where I'm spending my money and how I'm spending my money? Or am I just saying, okay, I'm going to do what I always have done and then hope that somehow more floods in? That's not really the way that it works. So when you look at that scarcity, wherever that is in your life, you're going to start to see spaces where the scarcity exists because of your mindset around the thing. So if you've always been in a space where scarcity exists with finances, people didn't have more than enough and they were living from paycheck to paycheck, you also adopted those habits. And so you're not going to see abundance in that space until you change your mindset around that thing. And we're using finances as an example, but it can be anything. It could be relationships. So let's say that you want to see abundance in your relationship, but you're holding on to relationships that you've had for 20 years just for the sake of longevity when you know that there is no abundance inside of that relationship. Well, as long as you hold on to the relationship, you're filling a spot with something that isn't for you. And so you're never going to feel like you have abundance in that area. When you start to focus on it, start to shift your mindset around it, then you can actually open up a space for something better to pour in, for what actually is for you to pour in. And when we were at church today, he was talking about tithing and giving and all of these things. And he gave this analogy of like, if your hands are clasped around the thing, then you can't give of the thing because you're holding on to it so tightly that you can't give of it because you have that scarcity mindset. And it made me think of this. When your hands are so tightly clasped around something, whatever that thing is, not only are you holding on to the thing for dear life, but how can God give to you with closed hands? Like your hands are closed. So you're like, I can't receive from you because I'm going to hold on to this thing, because if I let go of this thing, then I won't have anything. And he's like, well, if you just opened up your hands, not only could you give that thing that you have, but then your hands will be open for me to open up the floodgates for you to receive more. And so when I think about that in just my day to day and what I've really learned about abundance so far is that there are so many things that because we fear losing them, we hold on to them so tightly that they can't flourish and they can't grow and they can't become what they're supposed to become, whether in our lives or outside of our lives. But we do it because it feels like if I can control it, then that feels safe. But control is also not abundance. And so it's like that old saying, like if you love something, let it free. If it comes back, then it was meant for you. Like the whole premise behind that is if you're controlling something for it to be in your space, then it is never going to fill the capacity at which it can, because you're confining it with your control. The same thing is true of everything in your life. If you're holding on to it so tightly that it can't be free and move and navigate the world the way that it should, then is it ever going to become what it should be, whether in your space or not? And so if you think about a relationship that you're holding on to, this can even apply to kids. If you're so afraid to let your kids go navigate the world and actually use all of the lessons that you taught them, and you're holding them in this bubble because you're afraid something's going to happen to them or they're not going to move right, then you're actually in a space of scarcity, not only for you, but for them too, because you're not allowing them to make mistakes, to learn lessons, to navigate the world in a way where they can move to their next and receive promotion based on them learning from their mistakes now and gaining the wisdom and knowledge that they need to go to the next space. It's because you're so afraid. And so fear can limit your abundance. And what I'm learning is that every time I pick a word, God always says, okay, you want that word, but there's this other thing that you're holding on to that's preventing you from having that word. And so the biggest lesson that I've learned in these past 2 months, and something that I really want you, if you take away nothing else from this podcast, I really want you to hold on to is when I first chose the word abundance, I was thinking about more of me, like more of something that I want, something that I deserve. And there's a train again, because that happens every time the word is good, the train comes because it wants to disrupt the message. But I really thought about the word abundance as it pertained to me. Like, what do I want more of? What do I need more of? What needs to happen more in my life? And what I started to realize is if I stop focusing on me and focus on all the spaces where I can make him more, where I can do abundantly what he has for me, where I can show the world his abundance in me, that's when the abundance actually starts to happen. So it's never been about me being more or the things in my life being more or the spaces where I think that there's lack being more. It's about me being able to serve him more in those spaces, see him more in those spaces, and do more of him for him in those spaces. And when I look at it that way, when I frame my perspective around that, there's nothing that lacks because he always operates in abundance. So if you're in a space today where you're really thinking about, okay, I really didn't do the word the way that I thought I was going to, and this word really hasn't resonated with me, just remember that you can switch that word, move into a new word, something that serves you better. But whatever word you choose, I would just encourage you today to make sure that you're keeping your word to yourself. You're checking yourself so that you're consistently checking in to say, am I really focusing on this? Is this really a goal for me? And then the last thing is really looking at what God's trying to show you through that word. Because for me, I never thought that if I focused on the word abundance, it would be about letting go of things. I thought it would be about keeping them and like adding on to them. I never thought it would be about letting go of things. And I never thought that it would show me that I need to make myself less of a focus and him more of a focus. And that when I do that and he's able to operate in his full capacity, not only am I going to receive more, but I'm also able to see more of what he's doing. And that is really what abundance is, which I never even had that definition of it before picking the word and moving through it. So thank you for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you feel led to, leave a review, share with your friends so the word gets to more people. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Remember to look me up on all social media sites and my website. And if you need to reach out to me directly, just go to my DMs. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch this video. I'll see you guys again next week.